Types of bryophytes. As I've told you already, bryophytes can be of two types: the simple thalloid liverworts and the advanced mosses. So look at the first one, that is liverworts. See here, they grow in moist and shady habitats such as banks of streams, marshy ground, damp soil, etc. And they would usually be growing always together, okay, in the form of carpets in moist soil. Plant body is thalloid, as in Marchantia. Marchantia is the most ideal example under the liverworts. Okay, the thallus is dorsiventral and closely appressed in two rows on the stem-like structure. As you can see the diagram here, the diagram is of Marchantia. The Marchantia is going to possess a complete dorsiventral thallus. That means a distinct dorsal and upper or lower surface, the distinct dorsal or ventral surfaces. Alright, so now basically what happens, you see, in case of Marchantia, the whole thallus is going to remain completely appressed with the soil, completely. It is not going to show any height. It is going to remain completely attached to the ground, okay, by the help of unicellular unbranched rhizoids. Alright, now see, asexual reproduction would be occurring by fragmentation and gemmy formation. Gemmy are green multicellular buds which are borne on small receptacles called gemma cups. As you can see in the upper surface here, these are these small cup-like receptacles. These are called the gemma cups. Inside the gemma cups, green multicellular bud-like structures will be formed, and when they are released, they will give rise to a new thallus. This is the most common way how a Marchantia or liverworts would reproduce. Okay. Now, sexual reproduction occurs by the formation of Antheridia and Archegonia as usual, which may be born on the same thallus like Riccia or separate thallus like Marchantia. So basically there are some species under the liverworts like Riccia which are bisexual. Means in the same thallus they will bear both Antheridia and Archegonia. On the other hand, for Marchantia, you can see there are two distinct thallus. One thallus will bear only Antheridia and the other will bear only Archegonia. So they are unisexual in nature. So do remember, out of the two examples of the liverworts that I have given you, Riccia is bisexual, Marchantia is unisexual. Okay. Now, fusion of gametes gives rise to the diploid zygote which develops into an embryo and then into a sporophyte. The spores develop within the capsule of the sporophyte and give rise to the gametophyte directly. There is no protonema stage. Okay. So see, this is the diagram of Marchantia. You see a dorsiventral thallus completely appressed to the soil due to numerous unicellular unbranched rhizoids present on the lower surface. Now, for vegetative reproduction, we have gemma cups present within which gemmy would be formed, and finally, the most important thing are these receptacles that are born in the female and male thallus respectively. In the female thallus, you can see a receptacle is born which has numerous ray-like flower petals or ray-like structures. These are called rays, ray-like structures. Okay, these receptacle born on the female thallus is called archegoniophore, and it will bear rays, and this is the receptacle which finally will give rise to Archegonia. It will bear the Archegonia. Okay, so it will hold the Archegonia upright at a height. Alright, so because it is going to, this receptacle is going to bear Archegonia, we call it Archegoniophore, and it is going to consist of rays. Okay, on the other hand, in the male thallus you can see similar receptacle which will bear Antheridia, so we will call it Antheridiophore. But then what's the difference? Here you can see ray-like structures, isn't it? But here you can see some blunt-ended structures. These are called lobes. So this is how you differentiate in Marchantial thallus that which is a male and which is a female thallus. In female thallus we have rays and we have Archegoniophore bearing the Archegonia. In case of male thallus we have lobes. Okay, and these lobes will finally give rise to Antheridia. So we call it Antheridiophore. Understood? So Marchantia is a unisexual species which bears separate thallus for Antheridia and Archegonia. Alright, understood this? Clear? Otherwise, the rest of the things remain the same. Like the zygote will be formed, which will eventually give rise to, embryo. Embryo will grow up to become a sporophytic plant body, which will have foot, seta and capsule. Inside the capsule, spores will be generated by meiosis. And those spores, once released, will germinate and give rise to a gametophyte. Alright. Now, moving on to the moses, which are advanced bryophytes. See, the predominant stage of life cycle of a mose is the gametophyte, which consists of protonema and leafy stage. So they have one extra phase in their life cycle, that is the protonema stage. Okay. See, the plant body is leafy gametophyte, which has multicellular and branched rhizoids. Here, unicellular unbranched rhizoids. Here, multicellular and branched rhizoids. They consist of upright, slender axis bearing spirally arranged leaves, and it bears the sex organs. Alright. Now, sexual reproduction occurs by, as usual, Antheridia and Archegonia, and rest of the things remains exactly the same. Fusion of gametes occurs in the presence of water, and that will give rise to the zygote, and then embryo, and then foot, seta and capsule, and eventually the spores will be generated inside the capsule. Now, those spores, once they will be liberated, what will be happening, you see? Suppose this is the spore, which has been released from the capsule. Okay? Once the spore has been released from the capsule, this spore will not directly give rise to gametophyte. It will give rise to a filamentous structure. Just like fungal spore, when germinates, it gives rise to a filament, isn't it? Which we call as hyphae. Here also a similar filament will be arising out. We will call this to be primary protonema. Primary protonema will now continuously show branching. Okay, it will continuously keep branching out and spreading into the substratum. So these continuous branches that are formed, that is called secondary protonema. Okay, secondary protonema. And eventually the secondary protonema will show budding. Okay, at certain sites, buds will be generated in the secondary protonema, and from these buds, what we will receive is a gametophyte. Now gametophytic plant body has arisen. Okay, from spore, directly gametophyte did not come up. Spore germinated into primary protonema, then secondary protonema, then buds, and finally gametophyte. This is what is the difference between liverodes and moses. Okay. Now, important moses are Funaria, Polytrichum and Sphagnum, and here is the diagram of Funaria. In Funaria, you can see multicellular and branched rhizoids present. Main axis or the stem-like structure is present with spirally arranged leaf-like appendages. Eventually, this being the gametophytic plant body, once the fusion of gametes will take place, it will give rise to a sporophyte. This is the sporophyte with the foot, seta and capsule. Foot is the site of attachment of the sporophyte with the gametophyte. That is the foot. Then we have a slender axis, that's called the seta, and at the head we have a rounded blob which is called the capsule. Inside the capsule, the spore mother cells will undergo meiosis, giving rise to haploid spores, and once the spores are released, you know what is going to happen. The spores will give rise to primary protonema, secondary protonema, budding, and finally the gametophyte. That means this. Understood that? Fine. So this is all about the types of bryophyte as well. Now we are heading towards the last part of bryophytes, that is economical importance and life cycle. So finally, for the last part of bryophytes, that is the life cycle of mose, we are going to mainly discuss, and the economical importance. Starting with the life cycle of mose. So it starts with leafy gametophyte, that is the adult, and as it reaches adulthood, it would give rise to Antheridia and Archegonia respectively, the male and the female gametophyte, or the male and the female sex organ, sorry. The Antheridia will bear the male gamete, that is antherozoid, and the Archegonia will bear egg. Eventually both will fuse together, causing fertilization. Due to fertilization, all this while it was haploid, right? Now, by fertilization, a diploid zygote would be born, and the zygote will develop into embryo, and embryo will give rise to the sporophyte. All this is again diploid, right? Sporophyte will eventually give rise to Footsita capsule, and within the capsule will remain the spore mother cell, which will undergo meiosis, right? Giving rise to again a now haploid cell will be born, spores. The spores will germinate, giving rise to protonema, as it is the mose we are discussing. Protonema will eventually give rise to buds, and buds will finally again give rise to a leafy gametophyte on the adult. So you can see a clear division in the life cycle. This much is gametophytic phase or the haploid phase, and this much is the sporophytic phase or diploid phase. Both phases are equally present, isn't it? Not that like in algae you have seen most of the time the algae is in the haploid stage, only for a very brief while a diploid zygote is born in the life cycle. Otherwise the whole life cycle was haploid, isn't it? Here, can you differentiate any such thing? Haploid phase or diploid phase? Which phase is being for most of the time? Which of the phase can you tell is more important? Can you have any such kind of decision here? No, right? Because both the phases are equally present, they are equally important, they are consuming equal part of the life cycle. Hence, we say that in case of bryophytes, the life cycle pattern is haplodiplontic. Means haploid and diploid phases are equally present. Haplodiplontic life cycle. But even if it is haplodiplontic, do remember, because it's a bryophyte, the male and the independent plant body is gametophytic, and the dependent parasitic plant body is the sporophytic. That won't change, right? Now, for economical importance, see, first, prevention of soil erosion. I have been telling you from the very beginning that bryophytes would grow together in the form of mats on or carpets on the soil. Of course, then they will hold the soil very tightly and preventing soil erosion. Soil formation. Moses, specifically like sphagnum, they would be important link in plant succession on rocky areas. See, in the rocky surface, first thing that grows are lichens, but after that, the next thing that proceeds is going to be the bryophytes. So they are also important in soil formation because they would also allow weathering of rocks. Okay. Next, water retention. Now that's very important. Dry sphagnum has very high water holding capacity, so it is used by gardeners to keep cut plant parts moist during transportation. It is also used in place of absorbent cotton, hence called cotton moss. See, it has been found that sphagnum, it can hold 16 to 26 times of more of water than their dry weight, okay, in comparison to their dry weight. So that's why sphagnum, because it can hold water for such a long time, and not only that, it has some antiseptic properties as well. That's why sphagnum during World War I was used very popularly for surgical dressings, because at that time absorbent cottons were not present. So that's why sphagnum instead was used for its antiseptic property and moisture holding capacity. It was used as absorbent cotton or for dressing, as surgical dressing during World War I. Hence we also call it the cotton moss. Alright. Now, peat, very, very, very important, and this is also associated with sphagnum. See, sphagnum grows in acidic marshes. The older dead parts of it get carbonized, compressed and fossilized. Why? Because it is antiseptic in nature, so it doesn't rotten up or decompose that fast. As it does not decompose, it will keep on accumulating in the acidic marshes, one layer after another, isn't it? So lowermost layers, they are continuously getting compressed, right? So because of that continuous compression for thousands of years, they will eventually get converted into a dark color spongy mass that's called peat. Okay, and see here, the peat is used as fuel because it is taken out, it is dried and cut into blocks, and it can be used to burn. So it is used as fuel. Also, it is used as manure. It is going to be mixed with soil, which will reduce the alkalinity of the soil and also increase its water holding capacity. All right. Last is medicine. A decoction of Polytrichum communi is used to remove kidney stones. So basically, that's the medicinal benefit of bryophyte as well. Polytrichum, that's a moss. It can be used to dissolve kidney stones as well. So this is all about the bryophytes. In the next class, we'll start with pteridophytes.